What's up, guys? So today I'm bringing you another video. Unfortunately, I don't have my STI right now. It is over at 6-star SPF getting more go fast goodies. But I will have my car back fairly soon, and I will be sure to show you an update video. Just going over everything that has changed on the car since I last showed it on my channel, because it's been a while. Not that anything too crazy has changed, but I'll show you guys that. And I will obviously be showing you all the parts that are installed, as well as my car on the dyno. Hopefully this time around I'm going to make quite a bit more power than I did about a year and a half ago. With that being said, let me quickly run through some of the parts that I'm getting. I am going with a which is quite a bit bigger than what I have right now and should flow more air, which means I can make more power. I'm also going with a because it's important that everything matches up, obviously. Could see ahead, and they knew that a lot of guys like to run like I have. Obviously, with that part, you know what's coming next. I'm going with a bruh. And I'm very excited for that. It's going to make my car a lot louder when I'm getting on it, and it should sound really, really sick. So, obviously, with... I'm also going to need to upgrade my... She needs some milk! And it has served me gloriously for the last 8 years or so. But it's time to upgrade. Because they suck. I'm also going with a... to keep up. And those are mostly the performance parts that I'm getting. But I'm also going with a new... And let's face it, who doesn't like a nice rack? So in this video, I'm going to give you 5 modifications that you could do to your car for $500 or less. I know a lot of times I'm online shopping and I have a certain dollar amount that I'm looking to spend. And sometimes I just look around and try to figure out what I can get for that money. So these are 5 things that I would suggest getting, or at least looking into, for your car if you're looking in that $500 price range. If you agree with me, let me know in the comments down below. If you don't, let me know in the comments down below. And if you have a better suggestion or a different suggestion than what I've said, put it in the comments down below so that somebody else can see your comment, and that might be perfect for them. That might be what they're looking for. So the first modification I have for you is GPS. These days, you could upgrade your head unit with GPS, Bluetooth, DVD, all the bells and whistles basically for around $500. Obviously, it's going to depend on the brand and the model that you go with. I personally love Pioneer. I'm pretty much sold on Pioneer. It's all I run. You don't have to go with Pioneer, but even if you do, you could find models for around $500. I currently have the Pioneer AVIC 930 BT, which has GPS, Bluetooth, all that stuff. I bought it back in like 2011 or so I think they've discontinued that model. But they have current models that are on par in that same price point. That is something that completely changed my car. Originally, it came with the 6-disc factory CD changer, but even with 6 discs, I really didn't have a whole lot of CDs, and on road trips, it sucks because you'll be surprised at how quick you burn through 6 CDs. So if you have an outdated sound system, I highly recommend going with something with GPS, DVD, Bluetooth. All of that can be had for around $500 if you shop on eBay, Amazon, THROTL. I know that they have a lot of car stuff, so if you haven't checked out THROTL, check them out. This is not a sponsored video, but I support Evan and what he's doing with THROTL. So there are a lot of other means to get head units for fairly cheap. And I will drop some links in the description to all these parts down below so that you could at least get started on shopping. The second modification that you could do is a COBB access port. Now, this is huge in the Subaru community. In my opinion, if you have a Subaru and you don't have an access port, what are you even doing? Because it is almost crucial to have an access port on your Subaru. It gives you a ton of information, your check engine lights. It allows you to monitor your tune, adjust your tune, data log, and it is compatible with professional tunes. So it's not just that you have to run the off-the-shelf map. You could do a whole bunch with it. And I will make a separate video for you guys who are interested in the access port and want more details on it. That video will be coming. You could buy a used access port for around $450. That's actually how I got into the game. When I first got my STI, I could not afford an access port at all, much less a new one. So I waited a few months, saved up my pennies, and I bought a used one off of the NASIOC forums for about $450. Back then, all they had was the ACCESSPORT version 2, but there are ways to get into the ACCESSPORT without spending MSRP money. So I think brand new, they're around $700, $750. You could buy a used one for about $450, $500 or so. Obviously, it depends on how old it is and everything like that. But if you shop around, you could find them. I've even seen ones float around for as little as $400. So that is something, again, that will completely transform your car. I know for myself, one of the biggest things that I use is the gauges. I love looking at my coolant temp, air-fuel ratio. Even though I have an AFR gauge, I can check it on my ACCESSPORT as well. And there are just a number of gauges that you can configure, and on the version 3 ACCESSPORT you can actually configure up to 6 gauges to display at once. Cruising right along, number 3 is an air oil separator, which is pretty much required if you drive a Subaru. Other cars it's helpful, but if you drive a Subaru, even if it's stock, I highly recommend getting an air oil separator. If you don't know what an air oil separator is, basically they separate out the oil from your crankcase vent. There's oil vapors that, according to emissions laws, has to get rerouted back into your intake to get reburned because the environment, right? Well, the issue is this actually can greatly reduce your octane, and it creates buildup on your engine components, shortens the life of your engine, and it also lowers your octane, which when you have a high performance vehicle is not ideal, and that could cause detonation and knock. They are well worth the money in the long run. I would not recommend any no-name brand off of eBay. That's just not a good idea, generally speaking. I also cannot recommend the Grimspeed air oil separator, and let me explain why. I currently do run the Grimspeed AOS, and I have since 2012. However, it is not the most efficient design out there, and in my opinion, it has some issues depending on what type of environment you are using the car in. It's not the worst AOS out there, and it's definitely better than having nothing at all. However, it's $300, and if you're going to spend $300 on the Grimspeed model, I highly recommend just spending an extra $100 to maybe $150 or $200 and going with a model that's going to work much better. My experience with the Grimspeed AOS is it works. However, it doesn't work perfectly. It doesn't get all the vapor out. You still get a little bit through there. The bigger issue that I have with it is I live in Pittsburgh, PA. We have winter, and in the cold months, there's a lot of times where I have condensation that gets inside the hoses. Whenever I go to open up the filler cap, like this weird brown substance, and it's oil mixed with water, and it just turns a light brown, and it's not good. It's a sign that you have water mixing with your oil. The extent of it, I do not know. It might just be in the hose. I know Grimspeed has said it's a fairly minor issue. However, I'd rather not see it at all, and that doesn't make me feel good. I am going with the IAG air oil separator because it is a lot better. And IAG has a couple different models. They have a street version and a competition version, which I will get into in another video. But Crawford also makes one. Radium Engineering makes one. Moroso makes one. Killer B makes one. There's a ton of different options out there, so I highly recommend doing the research on all of them and seeing what works best for you, your price point, and your application. Mod number 4, I'm going to geek out for a minute because I'm filming with my Sony a6400, and it has facial recognition software, which means I could do this, and this, and this, and my face stays in focus, which is a godsend for anybody in my position filming YouTube videos. I'm sure you've seen some of my older videos and seen some videos from other YouTubers where the focus is always hunting in and out, trying to figure it out. Thank you, Sony, for this godsend of technology. Okay, number 4 is your brake pads. Now, you could get OEM pads for fairly cheap. I think for the STI, for my car, they were like $60 to $80 for front and rears. I could be wrong. I bought them several years ago and I hated them. Ever since then, I've been running Hawk pads. I just personally prefer Hawk pads. I haven't really used other brands though, so I am going to shop around next time I need to swap my pads out. But I run the HPS Street and currently on my car is the 5.0 series. HPS and the 5.0s are both great, a huge improvement over OEM, and they actually produce less brake noise, less brake dust, and they greatly increase stopping power, which I am most concerned about. But honestly, even the brake dust reduction is a huge deal because the OE pads put off a huge amount of dust, and it just gets old and makes your wheels look like crap. Now, it is important to make sure that you get street pads and not racing pads, okay? Just because it says racing does not mean it's good for the street. Aftermarket pads can range in price, obviously, depending on your car, depending on the brand, depending on the model, but you're going to be looking at about 200 to 250, upwards to 300 or 400. There's a huge range, but I highly recommend upgrading your brake pads if you're looking to spend under $500 and you will really want to upgrade your car. And number 5 is a downpipe. Now, all cars are different, obviously, but on Subarus, this is one of the most restrictive parts of your entire exhaust system, and this is what needs to get changed out in order to allow you to go to stage 2 or higher. So this is going to free up a whole lot of potential in your car, as the OE part is very restrictive from the factory because they don't care about performance. They are focusing on emissions and sound, and they have 2 catalytic converters in them. Your downpipe is going to free up your exhaust system, and it's going to allow you to make a lot more power. It's basically going to allow you to make the most power that you can before you upgrade the turbo. So this is one of the biggest bolt-ons that you can do. Obviously, you're going to need a professional tune or a COBB OTS off-the-shelf map to run this tune. This is not something that you could just do. It's going to cause issues with your turbo and your tuning and everything like that. So do not do this if you do not have a tune on the car. But this is what's required. So like I said, after I got my ACCESSPORT, that was number 1. I ran stage 1 for a while. When I saved up enough money, then I upgraded my exhaust, and then I got a high flow catted CNT brand downpipe off of Import Image Racing back in the day. Ran me around $500 because it was catted. If you go with a catless version, it's going to be a little bit cheaper. And obviously the brands are going to dictate the price. The CNT version was a lot cheaper than NVIDIA, COBB. There's a number of brands out there. Now, if you have a downpipe, or maybe you have a little bit more than $500 you're looking to spend, or depending on how you pair things, maybe you could get it one used, you could also go with a catback exhaust, meaning from the downpipe back to the exhaust, on a Subaru at least, is a catback exhaust. And this is going to, again, free up more horsepower, and it's going to make your car sound better. Now, your entire turbo back exhaust needs to be 3 inches to run the COBB Stage 2 tune, but regardless, it's something that really transforms the car. It changes the tone of the car, makes it sound throatier, and it definitely makes your car turn heads, especially with a Subaru without rumble. It sounds really, really good. But regardless of what your car is, an exhaust is something that really just changes your car as a whole, and in my opinion, it is an excellent way to spend $500. So when I got my exhaust, I believe it was around a $500 mark for the downpipe because it was catted, and I want to say it was another $400 or so for the catback exhaust. It was from Gimmick Motorsports. I don't recommend it because it was crappy and the welds rusted and it fell apart, but it worked, and I actually fixed it with JB Weld and it held up for another couple years, and then I sold it. So you can get into the game for fairly cheap when it comes to exhaust. You don't need a titanium exhaust. You don't need a full NVIDIA exhaust right off the bat. But if you are looking to spend $500 from your tax return, maybe, I don't know, maybe your grandmother just gave you $500 for Easter because she's that awesome. This is 5 ways to spend that $500. So if you guys enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments down below, and I will be sure to make more with some different price points so that you could watch my videos and figure out what you want to spend your money on. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys next time. And I mean, who wouldn't like a nice strong rack?